Welcome to...
This is why musicians need therapy.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the podcast. My name is Rich Davidson. I'm one of your hosts, and of course I'm joined as always by Eric Forbes and Craig Hendry. Guys, good to talk to you again.
Absolutely. Morning, Rich. Morning, all.
Me too. I came with a joke today.
Oh, all right. Maybe we can make this like a segment.
All right.
All right, let's hear it, man.
It's, a little joke to start. All right. How do you know it's a drummer knocking at your front door?
How?
Because the knocking's speeding up.
Yep.
Hey, there's tons of good drummer jokes.
I heard that one. I don't even know. I think I've stumbled across this guy that tells musician jokes. I can't find him again.
Oh
but
yeah,
he told that one. I thought that was kind of clever.
The one I like is how do you get a drummer off of your front porch? Pay him for the pizza.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Let's see. The other one that comes to mind is what's the difference between a drummer and a savings bond?
Ooh, I don't know.
One will eventually mature and make money. little investment joke.
Nice.
Oh man,
I like it.
There were a couple of good guitar ones, but I can't remember them. I guess maybe because I'm a drummer, it just sticks out. Yeah, I feel like I'm taking a risk today. Now our audience, they don't know, but most of the time we record in the evenings. Obviously, it's not live; it's pre-recorded. But the last two times, today we're recording in kind of afternoon, late morning afternoon. The last two times we did this, my afternoon totally went to shit. I mean, just
jeez.
So I'm really hoping I'm breaking the cycle here. But I'm nervous. Because the last two times, it's just been an absolute disaster in the afternoon.
Was it inversely proportional to the quality of the show, though?
Really good show. Well, yeah, maybe. Wow. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, last show was good. So last week's afternoon was particularly shitty.
Well, so I don't know. Should we make the show shitty?
Yeah. Just so Rich can have a nice afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, come on, cut me a break. You guys just don't say anything and let me talk the whole time.
All right.
Anyway, so look, it's interesting. You know, we did a show a while back talking about the prevalence of mental health issues as it relates to musicians. And those numbers were actually pretty high compared with the general population. And so, look, we don't have to go very far to bring to mind some incident of some artist, whether it's a musician or an actor or actress or whatever, whose life has been cut short because of substance abuse. But what's interesting is that when I looked for studies on this, there really weren't a whole lot, and the ones that were out there, you know, were not really up to standards. You know, in those studies were the prevalence of substance abuse among musicians, and some studies had it as low as 18%, and some of them had them as high as 80%. But what I think this does more than anything is, but of course we talk about music, we talk about musicians, we talk about mental health, but we also talk about how this kind of, how this kind of intersects with life in general, whether you're a musician or not. And I think the substance abuse issue, I think these studies, or lack of them, kind of highlight how this intersects with life in general. that you don't have to necessarily be a musician to have substance abuse issues. We all know the people. We've seen the famous people who have succumbed to this, and we even know musicians personally that maybe aren't famous that we've been around who've had these issues. And I guess, I mean, there's lots of questions to ask about it. But I guess one of the things that I've always been interested to know is why, whether numbers bear it out or not, there is the perception that this is something that's very common in the music industry, whether it's rock music, country music, jazz, whatever. And I guess the question I would ask is, why do you think that is? I have some ideas about it, but I really was kind of interested to hear what you guys have to bring to the table on that. And then we'll move on from there.
Yeah. I think, when it comes to just the foundation of it all, an artist's job, a musician's job, a performer's job, you are entertaining people who are coming to an event to be entertained. When people, come to an event to be entertained, a lot of them celebrate, being somewhere fun with drinking or, smoking or whatever. And so right there, the environment is already laid the foundation for, access, making it accepted, making it like, everyone is celebrating in this moment. And it's, as a performer, I think it's really easy to develop a unhealthy relationship with that atmosphere. I certainly have. When you I don't know where I'm trying to go. I think it's easy to, I'll leave it at that. It's easy to get wrapped up in that atmosphere and say, well, we're all here at this, this entertaining thing together, and, I'm here to entertain you, and y'all are celebrating, and I'm, going to celebrate alongside. It's easy to get caught up in that. Yeah. That environment of it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, maybe what you're saying, Eric, too, is like, we just, as a society, musicians or not, we just associate celebration with drugs and alcohol, and that's just, in fact, my wife and I talk about that a lot. It can be difficult even to have a celebration without alcohol, even if it's just whatever, just, anything, any little get together. So compound that with, like, especially as a touring musician, if you're doing that, well, I don't know, I guess the bigger acts aren't doing it as frequently, but multiple nights a week, there you go, and then that just compounds over time. I found back in my sort of early touring days, like, there was also, in thinking about this, I think alcohol it was interesting. We wouldn't drink before the show. I think there was one show I did in like 10 years where I had a beer before a show, which for me now doing TIWMNT pianos is relatively unheard of. But that's another point. But we would drink after the show. We had alcohol on our rider. Don't laugh. Don't judge me. You can judge me. I don't care. No, yeah.
We are judging you.
That's right. That's the whole point. Yeah, so there's just an association, and then, like, I don't know, we'd drink because, like, the show would be such a euphoric thing, and it was only, back then, our shows were like 2 hours, maybe 2.5 with intermission, and such this, you'd have this euphoric feeling, great audiences and whatnot, and then you'd want to just sort of keep that buzz going, and so we just cracked open beers, and then, I don't know, I mean, I feel like we would, especially in the US, we'd go out to bars after the show, because we'd get done around 11, and then we'd have a curfew of 2 a.m., get on the buses, we'd drink at bars, get on the buses, keep drinking. alcohol is associated with that sort of euphoric party, entertainment, fun vibe thing, and it's hard to disconnect from that.
Is it is it Iron Maiden that I saw their writer just had an obscene amount of alcohol on it?
It might have been. I mean,
Yeah, I think it was a band that I saw. I mean, just like, hundreds of ciders.
Oh, wow.
Hundreds of beers, like dozens of bottles of different types of. I mean, like it's the biggest. It was the biggest paragraph on the writer. Like, it's crazy.
it could have been. I mean, very easily. Look, I think. Well, there's a few reasons I think it is the way it is, especially in the music industry, and I'm not just talking about rock music either. But I had a friend of mine. He was actually one of my music mentors, and he was considerably older than me, and he got into the music scene. We're talking, mid 60s into the 70s. And one of the things that he noticed was that maybe not alcohol as much, but probably to a certain extent, but also what we would consider illicit drugs. It was just kind of part of the culture. When we think about doing drugs, whatever it happens to be, it's almost under the umbrella of, we're doing something that's forbidden. We're doing something that you're not supposed to do. But in the music industry, it's not viewed that way. And for a myriad of different reasons. It is ensconced into the culture. So it's not like, we're doing something we shouldn't do. It's just kind of part of life as a musician, at least a professional musician, and at least at that time. I don't know what it looks like today. But there wasn't anything strange about it. And I think the other reason is, look, why do people take drugs?
Yeah, exactly.
To feel better.
That's right.
Usually. I mean, I'm sure there's other reasons. But maybe initially it was to feel better. And, when you're talking about life as a musician, a professional musician, there's a lot of highs and a lot of lows. Craig, you talked about that euphoric feeling after the show. Some people can't come down for that. When they come down, it's a crash.
Yeah.
And drugs can help them kind of, moderate that, kind of level things out a little bit. For whatever reason, they feel that way. And that's just one example. I think it's easy to become dependent on that, whether you're dealing with a lot of pressure to perform, pressure to sell albums, pressure to sell tickets, all this sort of stuff. For a lot of people, because it's accessible, I think a lot of people see that as a way to feel better. Unfortunately, it is also addictive. And the longer you do it, the less effective it is. So, how many times have we heard people say, well, I just did more. But that's not sustainable.
It's also, just real quick, do you guys know, I'm just thinking of that term, I think it's fire and wire together.
I've heard the term. I'm not overly familiar with it.
I think it's literally, I think there's it's either physical and or chemical, maybe more chemical, but your brain, when you have these associations, I think they've done studies on this where when your brain is firing in a, giving you a sense of, say, euphoria, and then you take drugs, you've now connected. There's actually like a connection between those neurons. I'm certainly not a brain surgeon, but and so it's it becomes a physical thing. It becomes physicalized, that connection, that firing and wiring. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, we've talked a little bit about, I think kind of the performance type personalities, the, artistic type personalities, they crave that dopamine hit, and that's another way, to seek it. And like you said, Rich, it helps rather than crashing down from, a great show where everyone is, adoring you and, you're really getting that dopamine rush you need, then it's all just instantly over and, everyone's gone and you're by yourself and, it can be really hard to come down from that. So maybe something to take the edge off helps you glide down, I heard Russell Brand say something interesting one time, and then I learned that he was kind of a creep, so I don't like him anymore. But he said something one time, just talking about addiction, and I'm not sure it's a totally original thought of his, but addiction is anything that you use to a level of disrupting the rest of your life. It can be, and if you take, I say that to say this, that something I have to work with, have to work around, have to be conscious of and fight against is an addiction to routine, an addiction to, well, this is what I always do, this is where I do it, this is for how long I do it, this is, blah, blah, blah. And it's just really hard to get away from that routine when everything is kind of the same. So
that's interesting because I think, and I think this is kind of where it kind of intersects for just about everybody is, we talk about, musicians and that culture of alcoholism and drugs and that sort of thing. But when you start to get down to, the general public that maybe they have 9-to-5 jobs or whatnot, that's a real good point, Eric, because almost anything can become addictive and to your detriment.
Yeah.
Things that might seem rather innocuous, but if it begins to encroach upon your life and affect how you do things, then you could say it's an addiction. And I think that's why these things are important to talk about. They're also important to kind of keep a lookout on because, there's so much emphasis on, drugs and alcohol and smoking and things of that nature. And yes, those are bad to be addicted to. But it's not just that. You can be addicted to playing video games. You can be addicted to doom scrolling. I've heard the stories. I've heard people talk about how they couldn't get off social media. And food. Oh yes, that's a huge one. Things that in and of themselves, we can look at things like illicit drugs and whatnot, and it's debatable as to whether there's a safe amount. Maybe with some there are. Maybe with some there aren't. I'm not an expert, but when you Eric, you mentioned food, I mentioned social media, things like that, even sex. I can't remember what it was. It might have been on like Discovery Channel or whatnot, but they were talking to people who had addictions to sex and how destructive it was, not just in the relationship, not just in the relationships with other people, but themselves. They couldn't do anything else, and so I think when you get to that point, it can be pretty challenging because any of us could fall into that trap, and so, it does remind me, however, Mitch Hedberg, he was like, he said, they say alcoholism is a disease, but from my understanding, it's the only disease you can get yelled at for having. And but it is funny too. And another thing is, we talk about these things, addictions as a disease. There are a lot of people out there that don't believe that, and they feel like it's a choice. But
there was an interview I
not.
saw with Matthew Perry where he was trying to explain to this guy, he's like, it's a disease. And the guy was like, no, it's not. You're just choosing to abuse drugs. He's like, no, it's a disease. They were going back and forth.
Well, it is. It is. I mean, look, alcoholism was labeled a disease back in the 1950s, late 1950s. I want to say 1956. I read it, but I don't remember the exact date. Drug addiction was labeled as a disease back in 1986. Those are like official designations, but it is. And there's a lot of people out there. One person in particular comes to mind who thinks that it's a choice, and they are staunchly ensconced into that belief. And that makes things even harder. I mean, those are the people that you can't approach about any sort of addiction problems. They're the worst people to take advice from.
There's
Well, it's just like someone comes with anxiety or depression, just
snap
smile,
out.
Just forget about it.
Eat
There's
your
a really
cereal and brush
interesting,
your teeth, as Craig said.
Yeah, that's right. You eat pigs. I remember hearing once, again, it was probably my wife was telling me about it. She's really into this kind of stuff. She was saying, really interesting spin on it, that now you could probably insert any drug here, but let's just use alcohol. Alcohol isn't a problem, it's a solution. And what that means is, the problem is God knows what, childhood trauma, anything. You're using alcohol as the solution to that problem. Like the feeling that you get from consuming alcohol in your own mind is a way to solve your depression, solve your anxiety, solve your PTSD, that kind of stuff. The trick then is to find a different solution, obviously, but it's a really interesting way of looking at it. People are using the alcohol itself isn't necessarily the problem. It's they're using it to try to help, if that makes any sense.
Well, it's like would you say it's like a solution to put off having to confront a dark feeling or a dark memory or a dark you're scared to confront it, and it's a way to not have to do that. When the irony is that over time it worsens anxiety, it worsens depression, makes everything worse. So
to be clear, it's not a good solution, but it is. But you're, but in that's like if you're in that disease state, you do whatever you can. You'll try anything, and in the short term, it works for 2 hours or 6 hours or whatever.
It does.
That's what you keep going back to it. It feels great, What a solution!
But then that thing you can't face comes back.
It'll come around eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that what was? Yeah, I totally lost my point. I hate when that happens.
And I think taking it back to music a bit, to performance a bit. Performance anxiety is certainly a common thing that is hard to face, and then you're looking for a way to not face it, an escape, a way to make it easier to get on stage, and
that's actually when I was kind of looking more in depth at this particular topic. That was one of the main reasons why a lot of people use, especially prescription drugs or things like Xanax and things like that. A lot of them will. A matter of fact, I remember hearing the lead singer for Kings of Leon. Now, I don't know if he still does this, but back in the day, he would take a Xanax or two before going on stage to calm him down, because he had that nerves, he had that anxiety, and that helped him to kind of relax a little bit and be a little more comfortable on stage. But yes, whether it's alcohol, they don't call it liquid courage for nothing. Yep. Whether it's alcohol or weed or whatever, a lot of people who suffer from and sometimes crippling stage fright. That kind of helps them get through. But again, that can be problematic, especially if you're doing show after show after show. Yeah. At a certain point, that could become a problem. But I don't know. I guess the thing is, and I do wonder how prevalent it is today. I don't know if it's as prevalent as it used to be, because so much about the music industry changes pretty regularly. And we talk about people who've taken their own lives as a result of substance abuse, maybe directly or indirectly. But good Lord, how many other people's lives didn't come to a tragic end, but how many people's lives have been absolutely destroyed by substances, whether it's drugs or alcohol or something else?
Here's a question. Do you think sobriety is collectively cooler now within the music industry than it was in the 80s, 90s?
No. I think the image of it is.
Yeah.
I think definitely the audience. The audience are they're not drinking as much.
Statistically, people aren't drinking as much. Yeah,
they're just smoking their weed vapes like
taking their Delta 8 gummies.
That is true.
they're still out there like zombies around. They're just doing something else.
I will say I think it is less. I don't think sobriety, but there again, I don't know what's going on today. I really don't.
Kids.
Yeah.
Because I said that to say, because like you said at the beginning, it was part of the culture to be just a rock star partier back in the day, right? In the 80s, 90s.
Oh God, yeah.
That was the vibe. What'd you tell me one time about David Lee Roth? The joke they made about him, like he opened up his coat and just had like pockets of beers or something in him.
I'm trying to remember the exact story. It's not coming to me right now, but he was prolific. I remember they did it was 1983. It was the US Festival, and I remember they made news because they headlined the final night of this like 3-day festival. And this is 1983, and they were paid like $1.6 million. And they were hammered before they came out on stage. I mean, David Lee Roth never was particularly a great singer. Good front man, but not a great singer. Just for forgetting words. I mean, they had MTV did some stuff for the US Festival, and there's some video of it, and he was just hammered before going out in front of like 250,000 people. Maybe I don't know if he needed that exactly. I think that was just a lifestyle at the time. But yeah, I mean, 80s, man, they were doing cocaine like we eat candy bars. It was insane.
Would you say that's selfish? Would you say that it's you're not putting the best product you can out for all these people that paid to see you? I don't know. There's definitely that angle of it.
I think so.
Yeah.
I would definitely think so. I think some people, we talked about the people who need it, to get over anxiety or whatnot. But I think in those cases, it's people getting caught up in the lifestyle, and it's just intoxicating. Like Craig said, it's euphoric, and you do this stuff, and all of a sudden it feels even more euphoric, and that's something you want to have a lot. And I think the lifestyle offers that, especially to those. It did at that time, and I think definitely selfish. You're getting paid over $1 million in 1983, and you're performing in front of 250,000 people, and you come out and you just basically shit the bed. That's terrible.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'd ever be able to live that down.
It's and that's right. It's a slippery slope. I mean, I remember, when I first started doing dueling pianos, I trained in Texas, and the guys that trained me also owned the bar. So, which was a dangerous combination because, he basically had, sort of free access to alcohol. I mean, this is part of maybe what you were saying, Rich, just the history of it, it's sort of always been there. But the ritual before the show was to do at least one shot of liquor before the show, which, as I said, I'd never really done that before. And it got to the point where we would drink prolifically during the show. It was very much I don't know. I feel like the shot culture is different around the country, but in Texas it's certainly pretty strong. But we'd get shots throughout the set, on our breaks, throughout the whole night. Eventually, by the end of the night, our boss would be literally pouring Jack Daniels down our throat on stage.
That's great for the vocal cords.
Really, yeah. But then what, 3, 4, 5 years of that or whatever, and then I remember I went out on my own. I started freelancing, and I remember I did my first gig. It was at I think it was at Johnny Foley's, which is a dueling piano bar. I think it's still there in San Francisco, and they were like,
I've been there.
By the way, there's no drinking. We're a zero tolerance, alcohol establishment. And I was like, wait, what? I was genuinely panicky. You mean I have to do this show sober? And it was a bit of a dangerous wake up call. But I struggled. I'm like, I got to do this show sober. And look, dueling pianos is hard because everyone's drinking around you, and there are different schools of thought on whether or not you should or shouldn't be drinking during a show. But anyway, it was tough. So yeah, talk about association. That's
Craig, I wanted.
Go ahead.
You and I have talked about, kind of what you just, alluded to there at the end, and it is a slippery slope because those nights in Texas where people are buying you shots, what's that doing? That's making the bar a ton of money.
Yep.
That's making the bar a ton of money and keeping it open. And again, very slippery slope, but there is that.
Well, and the
angle.
culture was just drink as much as you can, and how long can you last? And then we drink after the show for hours. Oh man.
Well, that leads to a question. I mean, with all that said, experience and your rearview mirror and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on that? Where do you stand on the drinking during the show?
I personally think it's okay to a point, and it's you got to know your limit. And I've seen people drink, even worse than what you were describing, Rich. But where they'd just pass out on the piano, just fall onto the keys, and you got to drag them off stage. So that's probably that's probably a good line. Yeah, but everything in moderation. I think we've said that before.
including moderation.
Which these people would do.
There's a lot of callbacks on this one. That's great.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. If you can keep a lid on it, keep it together.
Is that where you're at too, Eric?
Yeah, but you, Eric.
Yeah. I think I hold myself to a performance standard that I'm not going to compromise, and if you can trust me with that, then, but again, it's us all, what does alcohol do? It gives you what's the word I'm looking for? Like immortality complex, whatever. I'm immortal.
Yeah.
I'm untouchable, right? It kind of gives you, so like, it's, I don't know. It's hard. It's such a, it's such a difficult, situation.
And I guess, I get, Craig, what you had talked about, I think it actually kind of, it kind of not really dovetails, but it kind of covers a lot of bases because, you're talking about, you're doing a show where everybody around you is drinking. So it's like, it becomes the environment, and Eric, you mentioned this as well, the environment is set and it's very easy to kind of join in.
Yep.
Well, people want you to join in, like that's,
they would
people,
love it. Yeah.
And when you have that, then if you don't do it, especially if, like, for me, it wouldn't be a problem because I'm not much of a drinker. So, why don't you join in? Because I don't want to. And I don't really feel like I'm missing out.
Yeah.
But, I also think from a musician standpoint, that, okay, everybody's having a great time. Well, I'm here kind of doing a job, and that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't like my job, but I may not be having as much fun as they are. And I would like to have as much fun as they are, maybe even more. So, I think that in a way can fuel things in the moment, like, oh, I'm going to drink this shot that you bought me. Or if you're, a touring musician, well, nobody knows what you had to go through to get on stage that night. Well, they're having a great time. You might not be. So
that's true.
Maybe I need to find something that's going to help me have a good time as well.
Absolutely.
And
night after night.
Yeah. That's a trap.
Well,
it's a trap because the black and white reality is, our job times with the general public, with the regular hours are completely opposite, right?
Yeah.
We're off while they're working, while they're off and out celebrating, and now it's our time to work.
Yeah.
But we want to have a good time as well. It's really it's a rock and a hard place there.
It makes me wonder about, like, maybe to tie it back to sort of personality, or whether like if it's something inherently genetic. My mum told me recently, my grandfather was he was a principal at a pretty big high school in Brisbane. I knew that my whole life. That wasn't what she told me recently. But she said that he would have to give him like a big speech, and like I forget how many kids are at this school, probably 1,500, 2,000 kids or something, big school. He would have a shot of whiskey before he'd get up and do a speech. I was like, what? Oh my goodness! All right, well that explains everything. Now I come from a very strong Irish background as well, but I mean, we can talk about this or not, but like I feel like I haven't really been exposed to many hard drugs in my career. I've never really been super tempted by it. Even weed. I guess weed a little bit more. It's just never really been my thing. But alcohol has been hard for me. It's been very tough. That's my Achilles heel, my kryptonite. So it's interesting for me to hear you, Rich, sort of going, no, couldn't give a shit about your shot of whatever, whereas I'm just like, ooh, yes. Which, again, it's not a problem, it's a solution.
Yeah, but if somebody came up with like a pickled sausage, ooh, that would. Oh yeah. Yeah. See,
Is that a genetic thing for me? Am I feeling a terrible dark void in my soul? All those questions, you know.
And Rich, if you got addicted to pickled sausages, it would be a problem, right?
if.
He's already in a
How
group.
dare you? I mean,
He's already-
I'm eating some right now. I have to mute the mic so you don't hear me chomping. No, that is an interesting question, Craig, because and I think that probably comes. I think everybody it comes down to that. Where does that come from? Now they have identified that there's an addictive gene. Okay. And I'm certainly not an expert at it. So if anybody wants to correct me or get in more detail. So we know that. But there again, what's interesting about it is the way in which it manifests itself. Like for me, maybe if I have the addictive gene, it may not be for alcohol.
Yeah.
And it may not be for illicit drugs. I'm hoping it would be the sex thing, but that's probably not going to happen. I'm sorry, that was terrible.
It's never too late.
But different people have different addictions, and I don't know if they've been able to identify why that is. Maybe it's a genetic thing. Maybe, as you said, maybe it's a psychological thing. I don't know, but it's an interesting question because there's plenty of stuff to be addicted to, and like for me, alcohol, just no interest in it, none whatsoever. But for you, it's completely different. Why is that? I don't know.
Yeah,
you know, I don't know. I know that I can be addicted to things. I do know that. But why is my preference? I wouldn't. That's not a good word to use. But why would I be addicted if I have that same addictive gene? Why is it this for me and that for you?
Yeah, indeed.
That's a good question.
Well, I just pulled this up on Google AI. It says, yes, addiction is genetic, with genetics accounting for roughly 40 to 60% of a person's overall risk of developing a substance use disorder. However, there's no single addiction gene. Instead, it's a complex condition influenced by variations in multiple genes that affect brain chemistry, impulse control, that's a good one, and how your body responds to substances. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's crystal clear now.
There we go.
Well, it is a reason. That's
right. So there's a component.
It's an interesting. It's interesting how that works. It's just basically everybody's different, and how you react to one thing is different than how I react to it. But it is, just that whole thing of it being genetic has been such. It's been a hard pill for some people to swallow, and I don't understand that.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
What are you gonna do? Well, look, fellas, I think we're probably just gonna leave it there. It's been an interesting discussion. And look, if
it's a heavy topic, but it's still mental health month.
It is.
Still mental health
it is
month,
still
and
mental.
There's a direct correlation for sure.
Well, it won't be when this episode comes out, but it is now while we're recording it.
So. That's a good point.
But hey, that's what we're here for anyway. But yeah, interesting discussion indeed. So, guys, do you guys have anything to promote? Eric, you're going to be, well, nobody's going to, you're going to be done by that time. So I guess I really didn't think that through. You need to have your calendar for next week because
that's right.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
I'm sort of working on my house right now, getting some projects done. But I'm going to be in Charleston. Eric, you and I keep missing each other there. I'm going to be there the weekend of July 4th.
I know.
We got to figure out a weekend to get down there together if we can. But if you're in the Charleston area, July 4th weekend, come see me. John King's Dueling Piano Bar.
Sweet.
I'm going to be at the gig you just played in New Bern, Craig. I'm going to be there July 4th.
There you go.
Oh, Yeah. Well, I know
So,
what the gig
can't wait-
was.
can't wait.
I know what it was.
Yeah, I told you.
Oh, wait, that same one?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. They need more. All right.
I need some American flag attire.
Not really.
No, it's not necessary.
Not-
It really
yeah.
isn't.
No, that's
Not,
We're being
Not
rather
needed.
cryptic with the audience, but if you knew, you'd understand why. Oh, that
Good times.
sounds like fun.
Good times.
And when I mean,
I would like to promote the local Carolina Hurricanes. They whooped ass last night. They're leading 3-1 in the Eastern Conference Finals, one game away from the Stanley Cup Finals for the first time in over 20 years.
wow. So that you think they're
Hurricanes.
actually going to get to the finals?
They got to win Friday night at home, and then they'll be in the finals. They will have eclipsed their hump of the Eastern Conference Finals. They've lost the last 2 years. But they just dominated last night, and they're coming back to home ice. They dominated in Montreal, and they're coming back to Raleigh Friday. So,
Well, there you have it. I don't know anything about hockey, but I know enough living around here to know that it's been a tough slog.
yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting sport.
Yeah.
Those guys are machines. Like getting hurt, getting injured is not an option.
Yeah, it's that's the way I live my life. No, I don't.
As
I
a
don't
machine.
really. Yes, a machine that's not working right now. It's
It's a
or
little,
at least
little
not as
squeaky.
efficiently as it should be.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks. Yeah, it's been fun. I mean,
it
all things considered.
yeah. So that'll be it for us. We're on all the usual suspects for podcasts. So like or subscribe on whatever streaming platform you prefer. And as we have said plenty of times, if any of our listeners have ideas for upcoming shows, let us know. We would appreciate that. That would be a lot of fun to do. Anyway, like the show, subscribe, share it with a friend. Let us know what you like or even what you don't like about it. And so for myself, Eric Forbes, and Craig Hendry, we'll catch you next time.